Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our post-match show of Fulham's 2-1 loss to Arsenal the other day at the Emirates. It's been a couple days, so I kind of probably needed a few days to recover from this disappointing loss, and we'll go through it because, Tony, I was hoping for Fulham to get something from it. It's funny about this because they almost did, and we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the performance and what lies ahead, which is Liverpool, and our thoughts on all of that. As always, please do subscribe and like this episode on YouTube. Trying to get these numbers up on YouTube. Please do that. I would really much appreciate that. Let's try to get those numbers up if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel. Okay, Mr. Gold, it's been a few days. Obviously, we wanted something from this. It wasn't meant to be for whatever reason. We'll talk about it. Give me your opening thoughts.
Yeah, look, you got to be very, very optimistic to think that you're going to go to Arsenal and get any kind of result. I think we spoke about it before the game, Russell, about, if we manage to get a point there, it would be a great point. We take
Absolutely.
it and we run. There's been a lot of negativity around Silva's shape, formation, the way that we sort of lacked any attacking endeavour, certainly in the first half. But there's a method behind the madness. You cannot go to Arsenal and play expansive football because, number one, we don't have the players. Number two, we're not defensively good enough. And you're just going to get picked apart and opened up. And you know what? It wasn't pretty. It wasn't particularly enthralling to watch, but you could see what Silva was trying to do and the reason behind it. And to be perfectly honest, it was working perfectly well up until they scored the goal, where unfortunately, the piece of defending around that really wasn't up to scratch. And once you go 1-0 down, then you're sort of in a bit of a situation where now we have to come out and open up a little bit to get back in the game. And then obviously you're always susceptible to what Arsenal can produce. Or do you continue to sit back, defend tightly and maybe catch them on the counter? And obviously in the second half, we had our opportunities, but as we know, we didn't take them when we needed to.
Absolutely, Tony. And again, to really emphasize this, I'm glad that we're starting by talking about the shape, because you and I talked about this on the preview of this match, and you brought this up and you actually nailed it. You said, I think he might go this way. I'm paraphrasing exactly what you said, but this was an option, playing three at the back. And as you said, Tony, when you look at it, why should you set yourself up for failure because you wanted to look better against Arsenal, but playing expansive football? If you have a way that you think is going to be successful and it's what we would call more defensive in nature, playing three at the back, then why not do that? Why do you need to leave yourself open to an attacking team like this? If this is the way, if you do it right, you can get something out of it. And I, to this point, have not changed my mind. I am for the approach to start this game. I'm also for changing it in the second half as well. But I think what ended up happening was, and I've heard the comments from Marco, I think Marco set the team up, but I don't think the team actually played it the exact way that he wanted to. I'm talking about the pressing part of it, to really force the issue a little bit, to be more aggressive. I think that the shape, when it got into the shape, is exactly what he wanted. But he also wanted them to push forward more, Tony. So I think he is just a little bit disappointed with that part of their game. But I think defensively, and I think he even said it, Tony, they were solid up until giving up that first goal, and then everything changes. I said this to you. If they go into the half 0-0, it's all to play for, right? It's a completely different mindset. That's the problem with that first goal. Up until that point, I think the team were playing fairly well, except the fact that they weren't creating anything. I get all that, and I've seen all the comments, but I'm thinking, they're playing the game the way that I think that they need to play it against Arsenal at the Emirates. What are people expecting? Fulham are not Liverpool at this point. They don't have the players to take it to this team. They simply do not. They have to play it a certain way and be what we would call here a little cute. Beat them on the break. Be more aggressive. They weren't aggressive enough in that first half, Tony. But I am not against how Silva set the team up.
Yeah, look, even at 1-0 down, Russ, he would have spoken to the players at halftime. They're still in the game. And, you score an equaliser just after halftime, or certainly, a little bit into the game, and you're still well within it. The problem is that when Arsenal scored their second goal, and again, another poor piece of defending, and we'll come on to one of the reasons why. Once that second goal goes in, on 73 minutes, you're then, it's an uphill struggle. And to be honest with you, I know that we will go on about the Muniz header and the miss and that opportunity, because obviously he scores in the 93rd minute. But that's football, and that's why Fulham are 8th in the table or 9th in the table, because there's been, and it's not just the Arsenal game, Russell, there's been loads of games this season where Fulham just simply haven't been clinical in the final third, and that has cost them. And also, they haven't been clinical in the defensive third. So all in all, if you're conceding poor goals and not scoring at clinical times in games, you are where Fulham are.
Exactly.
And that's the bottom line.
Exactly, Tony. And this is who they are. We're far enough into the season. I think this is a special season. It could potentially peter out. It could end badly, or it might end up better. We don't know. But this is who they are right now. They are playing to their capability. Can they get a little bit better? I still think they can. I don't think that they're out of Europe now. I know others will disagree with me. I think it would have to take something special, but I've seen it from this team. It's not over yet, but the difference between them and some of the other clubs is having that player that can make that clinical goal when you need it. And they are missing that. And then, of course, as you said, having that defender or defenders be resolute when you absolutely need it. Not to be making the critical mistakes at very interesting periods of the game like we saw here. 2 soft goals, and we'll go through it, Tony. And that's what's disappointing. But I will say this, and I said this on Full Time. They never gave up. They kept fighting. And for me, I think it would have been easy to give up at that point, but they didn't give up. He made a lot of substitutions, and I think they made a difference. And we'll talk about some of them, because I'm going to make an argument when we go to the Liverpool match that I want to see a certain player start against Liverpool. But we'll get there, my friend. Before we do, let's now transition. Let's go to the good, the bad, and who won the coaching battle. Let's start when they lose. I kind of like to start on the other foot. Let's start with the bad. I'll get us started because there's a good amount of bad to discuss. I'm going to talk about one of our signings, Tony, that I was very bullish on, and that was Joachim Andersen. He's not the only one to point the finger at, because defensively, Fulham are just not solid enough. But when you have a player that makes a decision like this, gives up the second goal, and pretty much the match is over, but they still fought back. I want to talk about Joachim Andersen's role in this match. And you have actually said this is probably the best position for him of the 3 center backs. I have him right in the middle. He didn't do it in this match, Tony.
No, look, he's been bang average all season, Russell, is the honest truth. And actually, I was very surprised to see Calvin Bassey not start, because, Anderson's the one that, I would have left out. I would have played Bassey, Diop and Cuenca. I really don't understand what Silva is seeing week in, week out with Joachim Andersen, other than the fact that he can spray a 40-yard ball from the back into the wide areas. Other than that, he lacks pace. He's very inconsistent in possession when he's passing and playing out from the back. As you saw the second goal, I mean, what was that? What's that mentality? That's just a lazy, thoughtless ball played into no man's land, giving away possession. And then, his recovery runs, he doesn't have a recovery run. He can't recover. As soon as that ball's past him, he is gone. And saw it against Palace on Saturday, saw it again in stages against Arsenal. And, when you think about what Fulham have paid for this player and, the critical position that he plays within this team, I believe that he is one of the fundamental reasons why we are struggling defensively.
Okay, very good. All right. Let's keep this going. Let's talk about more defenders that were poor in this match.
Well, my bad, Russ, is Castagna.
I was just about to go there. Go ahead.
And you know what? I am putting this on Silva because it was after 7-8 minutes, it was absolutely fundamentally clear that our right side was getting absolutely pulverized by Martinelli. And I mean pulverized. Honestly, Castagna must have been having nightmares after that game. He was getting absolutely rinsed time and time after time. And it was causing us a huge problem. And Silva did nothing. He didn't change it. He didn't adjust it. He didn't see it. He just allowed it to carry on. And I'm sorry, but, he's the manager. He should be, and his coaching staff should be seeing that. And they should be having conversations and look, this isn't working. We've either got to protect him or get him off because he was that bad. He was struggling that badly that it was actually causing us a real problem. And thankfully, Arsenal didn't capitalize on it, as much as they should have done, because really they were absolutely causing us problems. And it was a massive issue for us.
Okay, I have to share this comments from our friend Chris Goodwin. I think he'll get a chuckle out of this. I'm hoping you play zero at the back come Sunday. Follows that up with this one. Please, can you be this bad on Sunday? Just asking for a friend. Yeah, Chris, we know that you're a Liverpool supporter.
Chris, we could play 14 on Sunday and it wouldn't make any difference.
Okay, very good. All right. So let's continue before we talk about the good, because there is some good here. There is absolutely some good. I don't know where to put this player in the conversation, but let's just put this in the bad category because of the response that I've seen from Fulham supporters. It continues throughout the season. The reason why I want to talk about it here is because you and I have talked a lot about him. We've defended him. And I'm going to really put it out here about Emile Smith-Rowe. I'm going to ask you, where do we put him in this match? Is he in the bad category? I don't think he's in the good category. Where do you put him? And let's talk about what's going on with him. And is it just about him, or is it also about the system not playing to his strengths? I'm not trying to make an excuse for him. I'm just trying to figure out exactly why we're seeing what we're seeing from this player, Tony.
Okay. So in my opinion, Russell, it's everything that you've mentioned and it's everything entwined all together. I think that we've got to get past what Fulham paid for him. Okay. That's the first thing, because the price tag is neither here nor there. Fulham have spent millions of pounds on players in previous seasons who have been absolute, disasters. You take a gamble, you take a risk, you pay what you pay. That's the market value, and you crack on with it, right? So let's put the price tag aside. At the moment, there's no doubting that Emile Smith-Rowe is a very talented footballer. You don't have a career at Arsenal if you're a mug, right? That's the first thing. He suffered a very bad injury, and I think the truth of the matter is that injury has definitely affected his sharpness and his agility that he had around the ball. I think he looks slightly laboured at the moment, a little bit, not as sharp as he has been or should be. I think that the system that he's playing in doesn't necessarily suit his attributes as an attacking footballer. Because, he doesn't have many runners going past him. He's playing, he's got one player in front of him who's constantly on the move, playing in between the lines, in between fullback, centre halves. And it's very difficult if you don't have the pace. And at the moment, I don't think he does, to be able to affect the game that people want him to affect, or the way that they want him to play. I also think, Russell, that maybe he's enjoying life a little bit too much, that maybe he's let his hair down a little bit. And actually, he's probably not training as hard, taking it as seriously as he was at Arsenal, or had to take it as seriously at Arsenal because of the players that he was around and the atmosphere and the environment that he was in. So I think that he has to look at himself in that regard.
Yeah,
and actually work a little bit harder and give a little bit more, which he can do. But similarly, I think Silva, if he wants to see the best Emil Smith Rowe, he's going to have to start maybe next season at looking at changing the system a little bit. And what that looks like is anybody's guess. I know what I would do, but yeah, that's my view on Emil Smith Rowe. And I think at the moment, he's getting pretty rough ride and justifiably, because there is a certain expectation, and it's simply for him at the moment, it just isn't happening. And it's unfortunate for him. It's unfortunate for us as supporters, and it's unfortunate for Fulham as a football club. But I still think there is a player there, and we will at some point see that. When is anybody's guess.
See, I agree with all of this, Tony, and he deserves the criticism. The only thing that I will say is that I think it has gone a little bit over the top, similar to what I've seen from, and I use the comparison because we're going to talk about this other player coming up that Ryan Sessegnon dealt with at Tottenham. And it was vicious. I don't think what's happening with Emil Smith Rowe is quite at that level, because the Tottenham supporters were terrible to Ryan Sessegnon. I see the similar situation where a player trying to fit in, and it didn't work for Ryan. And part of that actually had to do with the system that was going on at Tottenham, everything around him. I think, like you said, Tony, part of it is on him. Dedicate yourself next season, be a professional, get yourself in the best possible shape that you can, start fresh next season. But I also think Marco should consider using him or finding a different way to get the most out of him. Because that's what we always say about Marco. He gets the most out of his players. He's not doing it with this player. So that, to me, is something that we have to look at. It's a combination of the two, Tony. But I understand the criticism, but I just think it has gone too far, Tony.
Listen, I absolutely agree, Russell. And I can't understand Fulham fans, constantly moaning and getting on his back. I promise you, we have got more problems with Joachim Andersen than we have with Emil Smith Rowe.
Totally agree.
I promise you, because
how about Pereira?
Well,
Pereira too. I mean,
but Pereira's had 3 seasons, Russell, 4 seasons, whatever it is, and he still isn't delivering. So it's look. I think that ultimately, as I say, unfortunately for players, price tags always cloud and cause problems because of what you pay for players. Yeah. We spent an awful lot of money on Smith Rowe. And there's an expectation for him to deliver because of the price tag. Yeah. Listen, in certain games this season, he's been fantastic.
That's right.
He just hasn't found the consistency. And, you can't play the same way against every opposition that you play. Every opposition is different. Silva has set us up in different shapes, different systems, different formations against opposition. And like I said, I don't think at the moment Smith Rowe has found his his place within that. And it takes time to understand. And it takes time when you're playing against or playing with different players every week. It's not easy. And I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just saying that it takes time. And I think, as I say, I want to give him, I will judge Smith Rowe next season.
And that's the way I'm looking at it, Tony. If we're talking about this next season at this time and he still looks like this, then I'm with everyone. But not yet. I've seen too many times players in their second season turn very good. So how about Sasa Lukic? How about Chris Baird? Bobby Zamora? There's a huge list that you can look at. If you give up on a player too soon, then shame on you. That's the way I look at it. But again, then you have the player that is who he is. I'll use Pereira as that example. You know what you have with him. He is the finished article. This is who he is. Smith Rowe's not the finished article yet. If he becomes that and this is who he is, then I'm with everyone else. But right now, no. I'm going to give him a chance. That's where I go on that. All right. Let's now move over to the good, because there is some good. And I want to focus on the substitutes because I think that's the good part of this. Yes, the match was really not going Fulham's way at this point, but the substitutes made a difference, Tony. But I want to focus on one in the good category because I'm going to make a very strong argument that Ryan Sessegnon should start against Liverpool. Spark off the bench. I want to see Ryan Sessegnon again start a match. I don't know. Maybe you start him on wing with Jedi as your left back on the same side. Maybe you do that. Maybe you put him on the right. He was on the right over here. Maybe you do it on that side. I want to see more of Ryan Sessegnon, Tony. That is the good that's come out of this match for me.
Yeah, there was only two good things to take out of the game the other night. The fact that, well, actually three. The fact that we managed to keep it to 2-1, which made the game a lot closer than it actually was, in honest truth.
Yep.
I thought Bert Leno actually had a very good game. I thought he was very good, and kept things respectable. But absolutely, Ryan Sessegnon was the bright spark of the evening from a Fulham perspective. And I absolutely agree with you, Russell. I think the time has come now for Marco Silva to freshen it up completely. And I don't know if you saw, I put out a tweet the other day about the team that I would start against Liverpool.
I've not seen it. On
Sunday, right. So, and Ryan Sessegnon for me absolutely starts on Sunday. No question about it. On the left-hand side. And you know what? Let him play. Let him play. He's got fresh legs. He's playing with confidence. I'd play him in sort of like a diamond midfield 4. I'd put Lukic. I'd get Lukic out now. He needs a rest. He's looking like he's had a really tough, dogged, tired season. And I'd go 4-4-2, and I'd freshen it up completely. And I'd also bring in Devin Tanton, Russell, and Josh King, and I'd play the three of them. I really would, because Castagne's done. He after that game against Arsenal, honestly, I don't think he should play for us again this season. He was terrible. Devin Tanton is young, bright. Get him in there. Let him play. Let's see what he can offer. Let's see what he can do. Josh King, fresh as a daisy, bright, fearless. Get him in. Let's see what he can do. Let Ryan Sessegnon play. Let's play with 2 up front for a change. And just let's have a go. Let's see what we can do. We've got nothing to lose.
No.
Nothing.
No. Listen, we have a Liverpool supporter watching this episode, and I'm sure Chris is excited about the opportunity coming up and probably understands, he has the advantage going into this, but when you're a team that has nothing to lose, that can be dangerous. And I've said this, I've been looking at this match. I've targeted for a long time. I think Fulham have a wonderful chance to win it, not just get a point, but we'll see. I'll do a preview episode. We'll see how that all plays out. Okay, my friend, let's end by talking about Marco Silva. And what's interesting about this is that Arteta doesn't really change anything, Tony. He does like for like. You could say he wins the coaching battle because he brings on Saka, sets the team up well. You can say that. But Marco Silva actually did some things that I think were, in his words, can be brave, right? I mean, he changes the shape. He changes it again. And I think the substitutes work. So let's talk about the manager.
Yeah, look, for me, Russell, I just think Silva did things again too slow, too little, too late. And I think Arteta, look, you got to remember that they lost Gabriel after sort of 15, 16 minutes, whatever it was. That could have disrupted them, quite badly. And, he's pivotal to their defense. Kiwior comes on, and you think, you know what, we've got a real opportunity now to open them up. It never really materialized. And then lo and behold, Arteta then makes another change. He brings off Waneri and brings on Saka. And of course, comes on as fresh as daisies and scores eventually what was turned out to be the winning goal.
Yeah.
And I just think that from a defensive perspective, Silva didn't change it when he needed to, when Martinelli was ripping it up down the left-hand side and it was causing us endless problems. Silva didn't adjust. And eventually it cost us with the goal.
It did.
And as I said, you're playing catch up, and it's very difficult against a team like Arsenal to try and get back into the game, and not only get back into it, but then try and win it or not lose it. It's a very difficult situation. And as I say, it got to the whatever minute it was, 73rd minute, when Saka scored the second.
Yep.
He had brought on the substitutes, but again, it was poor defending, Russell. It wasn't the substitutes, it was the poor defending for the second goal. I mean, you watch that goal back.
Oh, it's terrible.
It was terrible. Again, down Arsenal's left, down our right, ball into the box. Everyone's just ball watching, free at the far post, bang. Thanks very much.
Header.
Thank you very much indeed. So, again, nothing to do with this. So I don't think Marco actually did get it right the other night, Russ. And what he did try and do, obviously, when he brought Muniz on, that did change something because he was, Arsenal struggled to deal with him.
Absolutely.
He should have pulled that goal back with a header. How he missed that is anybody's guess.
No idea.
Because that's a crucial miss at whatever minute it was. Because I think there was still 10 minutes to go.
There was.
And then guess what? He gets another opportunity in the 94th minute, which he scores, but too little, too late.
Too little, too late is the story of this, my friend. But like you mentioned, if we're being honest, obviously Arsenal were the better side. And you got to give them credit for that. But there were opportunities here, Tony. That's what's frustrating here.
There were.
No question about that. All right, before we break down the match, let's talk about the starting 11. And like I said, what's fascinating here, Tony, is doing the show with you. You nailed this. And I was like, wow, Tony really got this right, talking about playing three at the back. But here's the issue. And I really didn't think too much of it at the time, but maybe I should have. The starting 11 without Calvin Bassey. What was going through your mind?
Yeah, it was a strange one, if I'm honest. I thought going to that formation actually was the right thing to do, Russ, but I wouldn't have left Calvin Bassey out. Not a chance. And unless he wasn't 100% and they didn't want to risk it and he needed a rest and, whatever, I kind of understand that but then why have him on the bench? If he's not fit, don't pick him, give him the night off, let him rest and what have you. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised. The rest of the side, I think, pretty much picked itself is the honest truth. But I think what we saw, Russell, is we just saw 7 or 8 players that look very jaded, look like they've had a long, hard season, which they have. And they're just starting to look a little bit leggy, lacking in a bit of energy. They're okay for 20, 25 minutes. But in that 25-minute period, when we're on top in games, like we were against Palace and like we were against, Arsenal a little bit, we've got to take advantage of that. And if we don't, then we start to look like we're running on empty. And that's what it looked like the other night, that we were just running a little bit on empty.
Okay. Excellent, Tony. And listen, when I saw the starting 11, I actually thought this gives us a chance to win, but I really was thinking about, I just did not know how it would work without Calvin Bassey. But I'm going to bring this up. Cuenca's done nothing wrong, Tony. So giving him a shot is not the worst thing in the world. But as you would probably say, you probably would have left out Anderson, right?
Yeah, I would have given Anderson a breather. I thought he had a horror show against Palace. And I just think, you know what? Change it up a little bit. Play better. I don't think, look, Cuenca, it's a tough game to come into, Russ, when you haven't played for a while. I think he's a good footballer. I don't think he's a particularly great defender, as you saw, a few occasions. But what he does give you is he just gives you a little bit more quality on the ball. So I guess Silva's got to weigh up what he wants from his centre halves. I know what I want from my centre halves. Defend first, win your headers, win your tackles, and then worry about playing. But, for me, Bassey's a better footballer than Anderson in as much as he just seems to be a little bit more at it. He's a bit stronger. He's got a bit more pace. And by not having that there, I think we're susceptible. And it proved that we were in the end, because Castagna got done every time down that side.
This is all true, Tony. And what's interesting about Calvin Bassey, and I'm glad that you talked about defending first, because that's what he does. But he does more than that. He's the entire package at this point, because he can actually be involved in the play moving forward too. That's why at this point, Tony, I'm just going to say it right now, he's Fulham's best defender.
Oh, without any doubt, without any shadow of a doubt. But if we want to push on, Russell, and be contenders for something next season and grow from this season, then Silva's going to have to adjust our back four. He's going to have to do something in the summer. He's going to have to bring in a commanding centre half that's strong in the air, that's got better discipline off the ball, that understands the game, better shape, and just basically is an all-round better defender than what we've got. Because at the moment, our defenders are not good enough. They're not good enough.
No, right now, and again, listen, hopefully, like I said, what gives me hope is that Kenny Tete is going to be returning. Harry Wilson is going to be returning going forward, obviously, as a winger. But talking about defensively, they need to reshape that defense next season. And unfortunately, they got it wrong with Joachim Andersen. That's going to be a hard one for them, because I don't know how you overcome that one, because he's not going to get any better, Tony. He's only going to get worse. So if you're counting on him moving forward, it's not good. It's not good. I can count on Calvin Bassey, and we'll see what happens with Jedi over the summer and all this. But right now, the one player to count on defensively, well, two, Bernd Leno, obviously, but it is Calvin Bassey. All right.
Yeah, I think with one last point on that, Russ, sorry, is that with Tete getting injured, it's actually exposed Anderson a little bit more on that right side, because Castagna doesn't have the pace to cover around him. Whereas I think Tete was covering up Anderson's, lack of pace and ability to be on the turn. So, right, we have missed Tete. There's no question about that. Given that what he gave us at the beginning of the season, and then when he came out and what we lost going forward, and from a defensive point of view, it was huge. It was huge. But that's a little bit down to also the fact that our squad depth really isn't where it needs to be.
I totally agree, Tony. And listen, there's a lot that needs to be done next season, and we'll get to that when we get to talking about next season. But coming up next, we're going to break down the match, both halves, and I'll ask Tony, should there be a man of the match? Okay, Tony, let's get to it. Let's talk about the first half of this match. And the way I look at it, we've kind of already talked a little bit about it, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. Focus on talking about before giving up the goal, because I've seen so many complaints about Fulham were toothless. They didn't offer anything going forward. This is all true, and that deserves picking apart a little bit, right? However, look how hard it was for Arsenal to break Fulham down in the first half. I'm thinking he got it right. I can deal with this for a half, maybe a little bit further into the second half, and then find a way to nick a goal. That's what I'm thinking. And to your point, Tony, you want Fulham to have clean sheets, do not leak, poor goals. And it was trending in that direction because I thought they were set up really well. However, obviously they give up the goal, and that changes everything. Before we talk about the soft first goal, because they're both soft goals, talk about the shape, but we can also talk about how they didn't really offer enough going forward. That might be on the players.
Russ, what do clean sheets ensure?
Clean sheets ensure at least a point, Tony.
Precisely. Clean sheets ensure that you don't lose the game, right? You're not losing the game if you keep a clean sheet. That's the worst case scenario. As I said to you before, how many teams have played against Fulham this season? Brentford at home, remember that?
Yeah.
When they kept 11 men behind the ball and they frustrated us and they made it difficult, and they really, we really struggled to get in behind them, playing backwards and forwards. Yep. Southampton, Bournemouth. And, sometimes you have to go against sides and play a certain way in order to not lose the game. Right. I believe that Silva set us up to not lose that game.
Totally agree.
And I think, as I said to you, he comes away from the Emirates with a point, he's going to be delighted. It doesn't matter how you get the point, he's going to be delighted. Unfortunately, as I say, for 36 minutes, it worked. You can't knock his tactics or the way that we were set up. We had 11 men behind the ball. Arsenal couldn't break us down. When we won possession, yes, we were a little bit slow. We didn't make the most of it in transition, but we don't have that sort of team or players that we don't have the players that Liverpool have that can hit teams on the counter and break free. And, Traore was pretty isolated. Raul doesn't have the pace to do it down that side. So we frustrated them. The only downside for that first half for me was the goal that we gave away. Yeah. Because it was having worked so hard to keep that clean sheet, to give it up like that was just a shame. It was just a real shame.
It was, Tony. Let's talk about the goal, because I've watched this back several times. And yes, it's a deflected goal. This is all true. And I talked about it on Full Time because I was frustrated that they gave up this goal. And I'm thinking, well, it took a deflected goal to give them the lead. So that's something. But in a way, it's still a soft goal. And I go to Jedi, and I know there's going to be so much talk about him over the summer, about Fulham needing to sell him and all these teams being after him. But I'll tell anyone that is looking to buy Jedi, watch that Arsenal match. Watch it, because this is also the player that you're getting. You're getting the player going forward, but you're also getting the defender that we see every once in a while. He's been better defensively, Tony, but he also has this in him too. I want to get your thoughts on Arsenal's first goal and the role that Jedi played here.
What should Antonio Robinson's first job be in that Fulham team?
Defend,
right? It's just because, as I said, the way Silva sets up his system and wants his fullbacks to play. The reason why Jedi has been so good going forward this season is because Silva has given him the license to do that. Okay. If you put Anthony Robinson as a pure left back in Man United's team, Liverpool's team, Arsenal's team, and just asked him to be a left back, Russell, he would struggle. Robinson cannot defend. He is a poor defender. And like you say, if you want to watch the Arsenal goal back, that's just one example, by the way. There are others, a lot. Look at his positioning for that Arsenal goal, the first Arsenal goal. It is awful. Absolutely awful. And to be fair to him, at times he does get away with it and gets out of it because he's got the pace to recover and get back. But when you're playing against the players that he's playing against on Sunday, who are just as quick as you and just as bright as you don't get away with it. And he didn't get away with it. And when that ball comes across, please tell me, what are our centre-halves doing? What are they doing? What's Cuenca doing? What's Anderson doing? What's Diop doing? They're ball watching, Russ. They're ball watching. No one's looking at the danger. Where's the danger? The ball is the danger coming in. The man where the ball needs to be marked. None of that. It's just such a poor goal. Such a poor goal. Having worked so hard to that point. And unfortunately, that has been our Achilles heel all season, giving away these soft, poor goals.
And that could be our downfall. And I hope it's not, Tony, because we talk about this often. Look at Nottingham Forest. You use them as the example. They don't give up these types of goals. They simply don't. In fact, I haven't seen it. They're just a team that does their job, tough to beat, clean sheets, as you always say, and they have a goal scorer up top. And they have a dangerous number 10, Morgan Gibbs-White. They have the right players to play the way that Nuno wants to play, and it works.
But the crazy thing is, Russ, we've taken 6 points off them this season.
I know. I still can't. Don't get me started with them in Newcastle. I've already talked to you about that. I don't get it. But you know what? But it also shows that Fulham have something too. They just can't put it all together, Tony. And that's what's frustrating to me. I'm glad that you brought that up. That's right. That's right. That's a good point. All right. Tony, let's transition. Let's talk about the second half. And I want to say this because here I am. I'm talking about how well that they defended in the first half, but everything changes giving up the goal. But the second half could have easily gotten away from them if it wasn't for Bernd Leno, because they actually were, I'm talking about Arsenal, really starting to create some opportunities, putting Fulham under pressure. So before we talk about Saka's goal, what were you seeing?
Yeah, we had some difficult moments in the second half. And to be honest, Arsenal could have been out of sight. You know, remember they had a goal disallowed as well. Yep. And I thought when Saka came on, I think it lifted the crowd. You know, the crowd got behind them.
Yep.
You know, Chris, there you go. Chris has now watched it and, you know, seen it. So he'll be turning up at Craven Cottage very happy on Sunday. But yeah, no, look, I thought we had, you know, really difficult moments in the second half. And as I say, then it became really difficult when Saka, you know, put that second goal away, because now I think the fearlessness of Fulham has gone. They've got nothing to lose, so they can be a little bit braver. And I think that's what they were. They just sort of let the shackles off and just sort of, thought, okay, we'll just see what we can do. And as I said, if Muniz takes that chance, Russell, it's not only is it game on, but with the goal in the 94th minute, Fulham come away with that point. And everybody's talking about the game in a completely different vein,
That's what's crazy, Tony. That's what's so amazing about what we're talking about is like it was this close. I just want to talk about, we've already talked about Saka's goals. It's just a very poor goal to give up. And it's a terrible goal. But I also want to mention, I didn't mention this, I'm going to mention it now. Fulham did have a good opportunity to score a couple of them, one from Jimenez, and then you had an opportunity a little bit later. But like you mentioned, after Saka's goal, this is where they basically had the shackles taken off, nothing to lose, and they start going for it, right? All of a sudden, you're asking yourself, where is this Fulham team for the majority of the match? There's no pressure. They're down 2-0. So now they're creating opportunities. We have to talk about this. It's the 80th minute. If he scores here, Tony, I know it's easy to say they get a point, but I'm going to say it. They get a point. 10 minutes to go if he scores here. And then they score in stoppage time. I've watched this back several times. When I watched it live, I thought it was in the back of the net. I'm thinking there's no way he doesn't score here. And I want to give a lot of credit to Bernd Leno. Obviously, a lot of credit to Iwobi setting him up by himself. Free header, Tony. How does this not go in the back of the net?
Look, we can look back over every game this season and look at goals we should have scored, goals that we've missed, games that we should be up in, games that we've lost because we haven't been clinical enough. And this is why Fulham are where they are. We lost Mitrovic, we lost Pellegrini, and I hate to go back to it, but you have to in order to understand why we are where we are.
Yeah.
Right? Newcastle win matches and win the league, Carabao Cup because they've got a goal scorer who, when he's in those situations and those positions, he puts the ball in the back of the net. He scores those opportunities, right? Nottingham Forest are going to be playing European football next season because they've got a guy that when he's in the 18-yard box, he puts the ball in the back of the net more often than not. The problem with our centre forwards is, or any player in that situation, we're not clinical enough when we need to be in those situations. We would have been in an FA Cup semi-final had in the first 25 minutes, we taken two opportunities that we should have scored, Yeah. So it's been the story of our season, Russell, really. When we look back on this season at the end, we will look back on it and look back on all those games. We must have thrown away 24, 25 points this season, right? Think about that.
I know.
Think about that.
I know. And I will say this, and again, this is not a slight on Rodrigo Muniz, but that first opportunity early in the match against Crystal Palace, Mitrovic scores there. He 100%. Simply scores there. We know this, right?
And he scores that header the other night.
And he scores the header the other night.
But that is where we're at. And that is why the league doesn't lie. And ultimately, that's why the teams that are above us because they've got players that take those opportunities and score.
Yeah.
So, it's a real shame. We were that close to getting a really good point.
That close.
That's it.
Absolutely. And let's end by talking about the goal from Rodrigo Muniz. And what's interesting here, a deflected goal, but for me, this has a lot more to do with Ryan Sessegnon. And what I saw from Ryan Sessegnon, I feel like I saw this against Wolves. I see this spurt. We saw it against Tottenham. He's ready to go, Tony. Am I the only one that sees a player that is just ready to take off? I'm hoping Marco Silva makes the move and starts this guy because I'm telling you, he is ready to go. He's come full circle. I'm not saying he's Ryan Sessegnon from 2018, but this version of Ryan Sessegnon is ready to start.
I don't see how he doesn't start on Sunday, Russ, unless Silva's got a really good explanation. I don't see how Ryan Sessegnon does not start against Liverpool on Sunday. I genuinely don't. I think he's done enough now. Certainly in the games that he's come on, I thought, as you say, against Arsenal when he came on, he was bright, lively. Distribution was excellent. Got into good areas. Obviously made the goal. You're right. Start him. Why not? Got nothing to lose. Got absolutely nothing to lose by starting him. He's not going to be any worse. Let's put it this way. He's not going to be any worse than William, Traore, Iwobi. So give him a start down the left-hand side. Let him play and let's see what he can do.
So the criticism that I've heard of Ryan Sessegnon goes back to when he was at Tottenham or even with us. Well, he doesn't have this blazing speed, Tony. I don't care. He's got a burst. It might not be a Jedi burst.
And William does now. William
doesn't. That's my point. William doesn't. Reece Nelson probably has a much bigger burst than Ryan Sessegnon. But you know what? Ryan Sessegnon probably has a better nose for goal than Reece Nelson does.
Let me tell you, Ryan Sessegnon is no slouch, Russell.
No, we know this.
He's no slouch. And if he's feeling fit and healthy and he's looking fit and healthy, he can run. He's got pace. Don't worry about that. So, like I said, that criticism is nonsense. At the end of the day, he has only shown positivity whenever he's been on the pitch. Give him an opportunity. We've got nothing to lose. As I said, let him come out, let him play. And I'd like to see some more of the youngsters given an opportunity now to play with 8 games left. Let's see what they've got. Let's put them out there. Let's see them rise to the occasion. They're fearless, Russell. These boys are fearless. They've got nothing to lose. Josh King with the bit between his teeth against Liverpool, he's got something to prove. He wants to play. Let him play. He's fresh. He's hungry. That's what we need at the moment. We need players that are hungry, that want to play.
It's a good point, Tony. We'll talk about this when we preview the match. It's actually a very interesting way to look at it. Okay, Tony, let's end this episode of Cottage. Should we give anyone the man of the match?
Yeah, listen, I'm giving it to Ryan Sessegnon.
Okay. Simply
because of when he came on, the impact he had, the positivity. He was bright, he was lively. I thought Leno was a close second, to be honest, because of what, the saves he made and kept us in the game. But other than that, it's very difficult to pick out a man of the match per se. But I thought just because of his contribution, for me, Ryan Sessegnon.
Okay, very good. All right. I agree with that. I'm going to say Ryan Sessegnon. Before we go, we have someone watching this show that's a Liverpool supporter. Tony, give me your opening thoughts on the upcoming match. That's how we'll end the show.
Yeah, look, I don't think Chris has got anything to worry about on Sunday. Our home form hasn't been great, as you know. I think, as I said, I think it needs freshening up, Russell. I really do. I think if Silva goes with type, I think it's going to be a very difficult afternoon. I really do. And I think that, again, after 20, 25 minutes, we'll blow a gasket. Liverpool's quality will really shine through because they are, they are the best team in the Premier League by a mile. Their attacking threat is dangerous. And against our defence, I really fear what they could do to us defensively. So like I said to you, I would change the shape a little bit.
Okay.
I would freshen it up. I'd throw in a Tanton. I'd throw in a Josh King. I'd throw in Muniz and Morel up front. And you know what? Throw in Sessegnon. Have a go. Have a go. And let's see what happens.
Okay. I have to share this from our friend Suhail, who you've met. Okay. How about that? I thought you would get a laugh out of that. So there you go on that. Very funny, very funny. And then, of course, you got Chris's Marco Silva, class 5.
The thing is, he's not far off.
055.
We're going to have to play 8 at the back to get anything, I think.
All right. Very good. Great show, Tony. This has been a great show. And you know what? What's great about doing this, win, lose, or draw, I'm here doing Cottage Talk, and thankfully I've got you to do it with me. And I don't know what it is about doing this show after a loss. It's a little therapeutic for me. So thank you for doing it.
No, thank you very much. It's great to talk about Fulham and be able to share our views and opinions. And, as you know, football is a very opinionated game. Everyone's got one. But the thing is that for me, it's great to sort of reflect and go over and look, at the end of the day, we all want the best, don't we? We all want Fulham to push on and be the best versions of themselves. And we're 3 or 4 players short, Russell, of doing that. In my opinion, I really believe that. But I think now with the 8 games that we've got left, I think Silva's just got to let the gloves off, just let the boys go and play, and as I say, freshen it up.
See, Tony,
that's the key word.
I agree with everything that you're saying. I also agree with you saying that we're about 3 or 4 players away from, I think, ultimately where Marco wants Fulham to be. But there's an opportunity here with these 8 matches to go. And it's not over yet. But moving forward, I agree with you. They're not the finished article. And I want to see what the finished article looks like, Fulham Football Club. This is not it yet. It still feels like it's building. But they have 8 matches to do something special, and I really hope that they do. And before we go, I want to wish our friend here, Chris Goodwin, the best of luck. You are going to win the league, but I do think Fulham are going to beat Liverpool. I'll just leave it at that. And that's how I'm going to end the show. As always, thank you, everyone, for watching, listening to Cottage Talk. He's Tony Gold. I'm Russ Goldman. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thank you, as always, for watching, listening to Cottage Talk, part of the Talk Sport Fan Network.